This is truly one of the harshest and most thrilling survival challenges in the world. 100 Days Alone Season 7. The rules remain unchanged. Each contestant is allowed to bring only 10 essential items to face the wilderness completely alone. But this season, the level of brutality has risen to a whole new height. One participant even managed to hunt down a massive wild bison. Whoever endures until the very last day will walk away with $500,000 in cash, while those who falter must return home empty-handed. Yet, to lay their hands on that prize, they must overcome countless trials, from hunting, foraging, and searching for every wild berry, to enduring 3 to 5 consecutive days without food. But the dangers don't stop there. The unforgiving wilderness, crushing loneliness, and the very limits of human endurance will all be put to the ultimate test. Who will be the one to outlast the others in this grueling 100-day journey? Let's step into the survival battle right now. The first contestant, Joe, is a biologist for the National Park Service. He not only works with animals and plants, but is also skilled at making traps and fire by friction. He started by exploring his surroundings, like Sean did, and was soon attracted by a chattering squirrel in a tree. As the only contestant this season who didn't bring a bow and arrow, he used his great baseball skills and threw a few stones at the squirrel. I, like everyone else, thought he had no chance, but to my surprise, he actually hit and killed the squirrel. The contestants this season are truly amazing. That night, Sean heard something outside his campsite rattling his pot. It was probably a black bear or a wolf. He nervously grabbed his bow and arrow and walked toward the sound. The animal had already fled, but the pot had indeed been moved. After that encounter, Sean was too frightened to close his eyes all night. On day 2 of the challenge, female contestant Keelan was still getting a feel for the local wildlife. To be safe, she set up 7 snare traps. Along the way, she found some mountain ash branches and, remembering that Native Americans chew on them, decided to try it herself. After 3 seconds, she spit it out, as the taste was incredibly bad. With the area proving to be rich in resources, it only took 2 hours for one of her traps to catch an unlucky rabbit. Karen hugged the dead rabbit and cried before taking it back to her camp to cook it with mushrooms. She was finally able to enjoy a hearty meal. The next contestant is Roland, an Alaskan hunting guide who lives a semi-modern, self-sufficient life. He stated that for a $1 million prize, you would have to drag him out of the competition. Early in the morning, he built a fire and burned black ants out of a log. He then ate them one by one, believing that even the smallest creatures could be a source of food. He then went out to look for game and coincidentally found a large roll of fishing line. He thought that if he could make a hook, he would have an extra piece of equipment. As he walked toward the lake to find a fishing buoy, a wolverine ran out from under a rock. These animals can defeat opponents 5 times their size, but perhaps the wolverine felt Roland was more than 5 times his size, as it ran off after a quick glance. Roland then laughed and said that if the wolverine had stayed, he would have gladly thrown his axe at it. On day 10, Sean's winter shelter was 30% complete, and it seemed like he was getting ready to settle down. While working, he took a moment to entertain himself in front of the camera. The porcupine he had caught earlier was long gone, so he went out to find food to keep up with his building progress. His luck was incredible. A few hundred meters away, he discovered an abandoned boat under some broken branches and a shotgun and a rusty fuel tank next to it. A fantastic idea came to Sean. He propped up the boat with 2 stones, built a fire under it, and boiled some water. He then took a bath in the middle of the Arctic wilderness. For a moment, he was ecstatic. Joe is still living in a temporary shelter. After scaring away a black bear yesterday, he set up several traps in the bushes. When he went to check them this morning, he was hoping to get enough food to meet his goal of 500 calories a day. He was thrilled when he saw one trap had caught a rabbit, and then even more so when he found a second rabbit in another trap. With 2 wild rabbits, he could now fulfill his desire to cook meat with cinnabar mushrooms. After eating her rabbit stew, Keelan was full of energy and decided to start building her winter shelter. She initially planned to build a 7-pillar tent, but decided to go with a classic A-frame shelter since she was alone. The shelter had a log wall with moss stuffed in the gaps and a large door at the front. She then covered the roof with a tarp and a layer of branches, finishing her durable wooden hut. Inside, she enjoyed her meat stew, living a very comfortable life compared to the others. After his initial success, Joe became a bit too confident and decided to take a bath in the 3°C water. He regretted it immediately and scrambled back onto the shore to put his clothes on. He then went foraging, found a few cinnabar mushrooms, and planned to cook them with meat. As he moved through the bushes, he saw many animal tracks, but before he could set a trap, he spotted a black bear about 100 meters away. Without his bow and arrow or an axe, most people would have run, but Joe, thanks to his experience with bears from his job at the national park, decided to confront the bear and scare it away from his campsite. After about 15 minutes, the bear finally left. Sean, that moment was about to arrive. Back at his camp, he couldn't find his fire starter anywhere on his body or in his clothes. He thought he might have dropped it on his way back, so he spent over 3 hours retracing his steps. The joy he felt earlier was now replaced with disappointment. Starting a fire by friction was not his strength, and the damp conditions of the wood in the area made it even more difficult. The thought of facing the Arctic winter's freezing temperatures without fire was enough for him to make the heartbreaking decision to withdraw from the competition. What started as an incredibly lucky beginning was now a major setback. Heading back to day 5, Roland was still harvesting berries from the grasslands since he hadn't caught any significant game. He preserved them by salting them in his boot and storing them in a hollowed-out log. He had already filled 5 such logs with berries. His focus then shifted to building his winter shelter. He found a large pile of rocks and decided to use the ready-made materials to build a house. Piling the scattered rocks to form walls was not an easy task, as some of them weighed up to 90 kilograms. Fortunately, Roland was strong, and although the construction was tough, he knew the rock walls would reflect the heat of the fire, making it the warmest shelter of all the contestants. He spent 2 full days building the walls and chimney, filling the gaps with moss. He then started on the roof, specifically choosing fir trees that were thicker than his leg. Each piece of wood weighed nearly 100 kilograms, a testament to his ambition. He used mortise and tenon joints to install the roof base, and the rest of the work was a breeze. The next contestant to appear is Mark, a 10-year veteran of the U.S. military. For the past 2 years, he has been teaching survival skills like shooting, mountaineering, and tracking. Mark is a well-rounded survivalist who joined the competition to win the prize money for his 1-year-old son. While other contestants focused on hunting land animals, Mark chose to set a fishing net, and his catch was better than expected. He caught 4 fish in one day, 2 bull trout, and 2 whitefish. With his shelter almost finished, he turned his attention to preparing the fish. He built a curved stove out of rocks inside his shelter and used 3 flat stones as a cooking surface. He cut the fish into small pieces and hung them on a smoking rack above the stove to dehydrate, creating enough food to last him for 3 to 5 days. Upon becoming an adult, the contestant Callie spent most of her time in the wilderness, mastering various survival skills, from hunting to hide tanning. At the beginning of the challenge, she started by setting snare traps for rabbits in the bushes while she familiarized herself with the larger animals and fish in the area. One day, while hunting with her bow and arrow, she noticed a pack of wolves in the bushes ahead. Instead of being afraid, she became excited and followed them to see what they were doing. Unsurprisingly, she quickly lost track of them. It's unclear how good Callie's hunting skills are, but her courage is definitely on par with the male contestants. The next contestant is Clay, who made a strong first impression by shooting and killing a squirrel with an arrow. Born into a family of hunters and gatherers, he has been using a bow and arrow since childhood. Clay's goal is to win the prize money to live a freer lifestyle. So far, he has built a large part of his house's frame and a 3-tiered log bed. He continued building the walls with logs, sawed off the excess, and filled the gaps with moss, creating a structure that was both solid and visually pleasing. However, while carrying a log back to his camp, he slipped and hurt a crack in his left knee. Clay knew this could be a problem, as he had surgery on that knee 13 years ago. Still, motivated by the prize money, he decided to endure the pain and hoped his knee would heal in a few days. By the end of the day, his wooden house was complete, with tarps covering the walls and a thick layer of branches on top. The 8th contestant, Amos, learned survival skills as a child to escape from war. Now 40, he is exceptionally skilled in many areas, including making traps, creating fire by friction, building shelters, and identifying edible plants. Like Mark, he also set up a fishing net early in the competition. When he went to check it, he saw a white object in the net. He pulled it in and was delighted to find a whitefish weighing between 3 and 4 pounds, which was enough to feed him for 2 days. As Amos was cleaning the fish, a wolverine was drawn to the scent and came to investigate. But because of the significant size difference between them, the wolverine wisely decided to leave. Now that almost every contestant has made a catch, who will be the next one to be eliminated? We'll see tomorrow. To win $1 million, the contestants must survive for 100 days with only 10 items. This has led some to be brave enough to hunt a 400 kilograms musk ox with just a knife. while others have dared to chase a black bear with a bow and arrow. In a season of Alone filled with survival experts, the contestants' ability to acquire protein is the most impressive. An act as incredible as shooting a 10 kilograms porcupine with a single arrow is a common occurrence here. Mark catches 4 fish in one net, drinking fish head soup for days. After the leftovers cool, fat-filled fish guts can't be wasted. He relies on these to maintain weight. Only the shelter's door remains unfinished. For logs bound together, 2 crossbars hold wooden planks. Branches layered in the middle form his super strong anti-theft door. Just finished and wants to rest. Hears crows cawing outside. Years of wilderness experience tell Mark a predator may be nearby. He steps out to check the back hill. Sure enough, a black bear roams outside camp. Mark guesses. It was drawn by the smell of smoked fish. He grabs his bow, sneaking upwind, hoping to track the bear's den and shoot it. Its meat could feed him for 2 months. Sadly, by 3 p.m., the bear vanishes. Mark mimics a rabbit's distress call to lure the bear back. He waits half an hour on the spot. Still no sign of the bear. So he heads back. Having caught no game, he weaves a thorn net with paracord to try improving his food supply with fish. Day 10 of the challenge. He needs to punch new belt holes to tighten his pants. If he keeps losing weight, the show will force him to quit. Though he hunts daily with his bow, he hasn't seen even a rabbit nearby. He can only hope the net brings results. Luckily, heaven rewards the bald. The makeshift paracord net catches a trout that day. 2.5 pounds, enough for a feast. He hurries back to cook it, waiting patiently for 15 minutes. Mark finally eats hot fish meat. He also focuses on balanced nutrition, eating meat but chewing berries daily. For vitamin supplements, his only worry is a knee injury from days ago. The pain hasn't improved. He feels a large lump behind his knee. Sure, it's a recurring injury. That night, he feels a slight fever, barely sleeping until dawn. The knee's dull ache has worsened to sharp pain. Self-healing is no longer an option. With the competition far from over, out of options, Mark chooses to quit and heal at home. Scene shifts to the female contestant planning. Her previous shelter was deemed inadequate. Now she's found a suitable spot, ready to start from scratch. Needs food to fuel up before breaking ground. She heads out to hunt for some game. Wanders to a rocky hill area. Hears noises from below. Spots a porcupine napping at home. Quickly draws bow. Fires a piercing arrow. Thrilled as the shot hits the target. To ensure it's completely dead, fires another blunt arrow at it. Truly, the pig sleeps at home. Calamity falls from the sky. This porcupine weighs about 20 pounds. Among the top 5 catches. In this land, it's a great haul. Spends 10 minutes skinning and cleaning. Yields a big pot of porcupine meat. Enough to sustain her for days. Supports her building energy needs. 9th contestant is named Joel. Grew up in South Africa, Tanzania. Rich in wilderness survival skills. Learned much from the Maasai, hunting, and survival techniques. Joined the competition to give his wife and kids a better life. Flashback to the 8th day. Joel only caught a hare and squirrel. Today, he ventures farther out. Treks for about an hour. Sees moose tracks in bushes. Fresh footprints left behind. Tracks lead to a muskox skull on ground. He guesses large animals are common here. Plans to return multiple times. Joel brings the muskox skull to camp. Hangs it at the entrance. Talks to the skull every morning to ease his loneliness. Though his bow hasn't caught much, his fishing net works wonders. Today, it caught a whitefish, weighing about 2.5 pounds. 6th fish caught in the challenge. Next 3 days, net works. Catches 4 more fish for him. Joel plans to build a food cache in trees to avoid bears and wolves. First, he crafts a ladder. Picks 3 nearby spruce trees. Chops off lower branches for grip. Climbs ladder, cuts excess canopy. But a careless mistake. Falling canopy knocks him down. Luckily, he's not injured. Finally builds a platform on trees. Stores smoked fish meat up there. Last contestant is named Keith. Over 30 years of survival experience. Skilled in hunting, fishing, traps. Joined to win prize money. Quit his job. Spend more time in the wilderness. Goes hunting daily these days. But hasn't seen large game yet. Only caught a grouse and squirrel. Today, a breakthrough. Spots fresh moose droppings. Wanders the forest for a while. Hears a squirrel chattering away. Keith draws his bow and shoots. No doubt, another clean hit. Walks up, catches the falling squirrel. His moves are smooth as water. Deserves a big thumbs up. Takes it back, cleans it up. Meat saved for dinner. Gets used as fish bait. Maximizes every resource. Wastes absolutely nothing. Scene shifts to Kaylin, holding a metal lure from the beach. Tries her luck by the lake near camp. Caught rabbits with rope traps. She's not short on protein. Now wants fish for some fat. Net in water hasn't caught anything. Fishing turns out the same. Thinks this lake has too few fish. Kaylin grabs her sleeping bag, axe and a few other items. Treks 1.6 kilometers to another spot. Believes fishing odds are better here. After 2.5 hours, finally hooks a fish, but it escapes halfway through reeling. Still proves fish are here. Kaylin camps by the water. Fishes from 8 a.m. next day. Gives up by 10 a.m., discouraged. Feels she's not fated to catch fish. As she packs to head back, suddenly spots ahead a 600-pound moose 30 meters away. It likely saw her and fled. Swims across the lake to escape. Kaylin mimics a female moose in heat to lure it back her way. Sure enough, the lone buck turns back. As she prepares to draw her bow, realizes she forgot her bow. Feels utterly devastated. Like $1 million slipped away. Vanished from her grasp. How frustrating is that? Isn't she furious? Day 11 arrives. Amos wakes up early, does a set of Indian-style radio calisthenics, thanks nature for its gifts, then checks his fishing net. Today, it caught a northern pike. His fish supply hasn't stopped in the challenge, caught a total of 11 fish so far. He wastes nothing. Fish heads used for soup. Fish meat serves as main dish, extras hung on trees for storage. As long as bears and wolves don't steal, if things continue this way, he has a good shot at lasting 100 days. But trouble comes as it will. That night, soon after a big meal, he hears animal footsteps outside, grabs his bow and steps out to see who's lurking around, sees a wolf dash back to the woods. Checks fish jerky on trees, all safe. Satisfied, he returns to rest. Worst off is Joe right now. Ate his hare and squirrel catches, now relies on berries, mushrooms to build a winter shelter, which hasn't started yet. As a hide-wearing guy, he wants a warm, upscale shelter to make it grand and cozy, so he brought a chisel along. First, he trims a big tree clean, ties a rope to the top, loops it over a frame to raise it. Then uses dovetail joints at the top. Base also uses mortise and tenon, installs 8 beams between 2 frames. More work requires big effort. By day 15, Joe does lightning-fast stretches in the morning, then checks traps, with no yield for days. Both snares remain empty. Feeling disheartened, as he heads back to eat berries, Joe spots a squirrel hiding in a hole, grabs a sharpened stick to poke it, struggles, but fails to get it, plans to grab a longer stick, but foolishly leaves the hole open, letting the squirrel slip away, likely from not eating meat. His mind's grown sluggish, leading to such a rookie mistake. Back to the priest. He crafts earrings from berry juice and animal bones in spare time. A key part of survival is maintaining a positive mindset. Now he's got the mindset, just unsure about fishing line yields. It doesn't disappoint him. Line catches a fat 2.5-pound trout. Golden fish meat looks appetizing. He roasts it on a rack. Keeps bones and head for soup. Smoked fish jerky adds flavor. Tastes unique and delicious, with protein dozens of times higher than beef. Roland's trap finally catches a squirrel. Not seeing meat for days, he's overjoyed. After the meal, he must finish sealing food. Gathers 10 nearby trees. Logs laid flat fit perfectly. Fills gaps with moss. Covers with tarp. Done in 2 days. No game caught for a while. Roland digs up willow roots. They're not just herbs. Treat fever and inflammation. 100 grams has 5 grams of protein and 3 grams of fat. Truly great survival food. Roland stores dug-up roots in a cave as reserves. Like Kaylin's net, his hasn't caught anything yet either. Decides to move to deeper waters, hoping for a protein feast soon. Richest contestants are Mark and Amos. Both store heaps of fish meat. Struggling most are Joe and Roland. No game, surviving on plants. He'll drop out next, or face an accident. Let's wait and see. Survive 100 days, win $1 million. With only 10 items allowed. Alone Season 7. Truly a gathering of survival masters. Contestants fight hard for protein. Some eat rabbit as meals. Some have too much fish jerky. Others hunt 800-pound muskox. Eat well, last 100 days. They'd face bears with 3 punches. Day 17 arrives. Mark, the season's fish king. Net catches 2 whitefish today. While others stress over food, he's achieved protein freedom early. Net has caught 26 fish so far, with 18 still in storage. Shelter's smoking rack isn't enough. Mark builds a huge tripod rack. Large triangular smoker, surrounded by spruce to trap smoke. Adds an alert device to prevent animals stealing when the fire dies. These days, eating high-fat fish daily, he develops diarrhea. Mark gathers nearby reindeer moss, plans to eat it, to balance his diet and improve his health. After moss, he seeks berries, blueberries or such, hoping to fix his gut soon. By chance, Mark finds a bear trail. A path it trampled. A bear hunt plan sparks in his mind. But then, sees a bear in the shore's berry patch. He notices it comes when he leaves. So it visits the berry patch. He grabs his bow and arrow, hides in the berry patch, waiting to ambush the bear. In stark contrast to Mark. This morning, he's out of food, but grinds bone into a tattoo needle. Mixes charcoal with berry juice. Tattoos 25 black dots on his ankle to bond with this land. Then weaves a net with parachute cord. Soaks it in a jar of berry juice. Takes it out. Net's color blends with the lake. Keith sets it in shallow waters. Thinks fish swim up at night to avoid lake predators and get caught in it. Day 18 arrives. Kalen ate the porcupine caught 7 days ago. Winter shelter is mostly built. Time to go find more food. First snare trap yields nothing, but second trap catches a hare. Winter hares are extra plump. Takes it to shelter, skins, and guts it. 2 days worth of rations. Food problem solved. She finds clay near camp. Plans to make a few more jars. Not sure how it's done exactly, but she rolls clay into strips. Stacks them in circles. By night, makes 2 clay pots. For cooking or holding water. Works for either purpose. Scene shifts to Joel. Just shot 2 hares in the woods. Action camera had an issue. Couldn't record it. Still, he dutifully shows the process. For everyone. When you spot a hare, don't sneak up suspiciously. It'll see you as a predator and flee. It'll bolt quickly. Act like a herbivore instead. Approach slowly, casually. Avoid eye contact with it. Strike decisively once in range. Maximizes your chance to hit the hare. Joel cleans the hares by the lake. He gets a good amount of meat. Back at camp, cooks hare legs and guts right away. Eats heartily in front of the camera. Tough texture, tasty, not greasy. Protein dozens of times higher than beef. Full and fed, time to work. He wants to add a door to the shelter. Drives 2 stakes on wall sides. Slides in a fitting wooden plank. Secures it tightly. But then, a fly gets stuck in Joel's ear. Something he never expected. Tries 3 or 4 methods, but can't get the fly out. Calling the crew over this feels like a loss. Quitting would be a shame. Finally, he uses the medical kit. Syringes water into his ear. Flushes the fly out at last. Relief washes over him. The scene shifts back to Keith. With no luck from his fishing line or net, he grows desperate and decides to eat worms. He recalls the legend that George Washington's army survived on them and decides to follow suit. However, for someone who hasn't eaten fish, the worms are tough to swallow. They look bouncy and chewy, but taste like chewing mud. On day 21, Keith couldn't stand living on worms and berries. After venting to the camera, he grabbed the satellite phone and called the crew, teasing them for a pizza. It was a prank, and the audience was amused. Meanwhile, Priest went to check his snares. He walked a full loop and finally found a squirrel in one trap. Having gone without meat for days, his eyes lit up. Back at camp, he cooked the squirrel in a pot and, while eating, showed a thigh to the camera. That night, Keith got severe stomach cramps, and the next morning, his stomach churned wildly after trying some squirrel soup. He soon couldn't even drink water, and realizing his life was at risk, he called the crew to quit. He was still vomiting when they arrived. Roland wasn't faring much better, having only caught 1 squirrel and relying mostly on berries and willow roots. But his grit was unreal, and his mental state was strong. He decided to move his net to deeper water, and his luck finally paid off. He saw 2 fish tangled in the net, a 3-pound trout and a 3-pound whitefish. This gave him hope of lasting to day 100. However, trouble came fast. That night, a storm hit, causing huge waves. Roland risked going down a steep cliff to retrieve his net and prevent it from being washed away. In the morning, he considered resetting it, but, facing sharp rocks and rough waves, he thought twice and decided to avoid the risk. After surviving over 20 days, falling into the lake would be disastrous, even without quitting. The future days would be tougher. The scene shifts to Joe. He had built a cabin frame by day 12, but it had barely progressed by day 23. It's unclear if it was the editor's fault or if he just hadn't done much. Without proper food or shelter, just a tarp and some logs, he checked his traps that morning. Good news. Both snares caught hares. Bad news. Predators had eaten some of the meat. However, the loss was small and acceptable. With a new food supply, he shifted his focus to passing the time. He tied 2 poles to a tripod for extended support beams and used planks for a backrest and seat, crafting a wilderness computer chair. He also carved dice from wood, stained them with berry juice, and hollowed out a log section to make a game. Back at Roland's camp, He was eating stewed rice and recalling his late mother. The lake was calm, so he reset his net and headed back up. As he was about to gather berries, he spotted a bear on a hill 200 meters away. A tailwind was blowing, so the bear couldn't smell him. He grabbed his bow and tracked it for over 2.5 hours until the bear vanished. The scene shifts to female contestant Kaylin. After washing her hair, she found it to be a hassle and decided to grab a knife and cut off her braid, giving herself an Arctic bob. After tidying up, she grabbed her bow and went to check her traps. She found that the snares had been disturbed but had not caught anything. At least this proved that animals were active in the area. She moved slowly, and squirrels spotted her and fled. After a while, she heard a rustling in the bushes, focused for a few seconds, spotted a hare, and fired a precise arrow, hitting its throat. Another day of bountiful harvest. She planned to cook the hare for dinner, but found that the cabin's smoke exhaust was poor and had to go outside. The next morning, she cut a hole in the roof, sealed it with clay, and found that the smoke exhaust had improved with a few minor tweaks needed to perfect it. Another female contestant was also refining her shelter. She wanted to build a fully enclosed lean-to. She gathered many stones from around her camp and built a waist-high fireplace, sealing the gaps with clay. The upper half was stacked with logs, and the gaps were sealed with moss. On the enclosed side, she left an entryway as a door. With this setup, she could sit cozily and enjoy her meals. Day 26 arrived. Joe's lean-to tarp was flapping loudly in the wind, but he was still sleeping in late. Today, he was trying his luck at fishing because his cabin plans were so grandiose that he needed more energy to keep building. He waited for 2 hours and finally felt a fish bite. He reeled it in and found it was a big one, enough for 2 days of meals. Excited, he dove in to grab it, fearing it would slip off the line. The fish weighed at least 5 pounds. While a common catch for the fish king Mark, it was a huge score for Joe, whose building work depended on this red-spotted trout. Second to Mark in fish count was the indigenous elder Amos. His stock of smoked fish could feed others for a month, but for him, it would only last half a month because at restaurants, he could devour 4 dishes and soup. So he aimed to catch and store more fish. His face looked pale and his cheeks dark, likely from eating too much meat, which his organs couldn't handle. He needed to eat more vegetables after the challenge. Today, his net underperformed and caught nothing for the first time. With the weather getting colder, he planned to chop more firewood. He worked until nightfall and lost his axe. He searched with a headlamp, but as snow began to fall, he knew finding it would be a needle in a haystack. As expected, he didn't find it, and his hands froze, and his shoes and socks got soaked. At that point, he decided to sleep and deal with it later. The next morning, a thin layer of snow made the axe handle visible, and he recovered it. He was overjoyed because without it, gathering firewood would be a chore. Roland's luck had also turned. His net had been quiet since catching 2 fish, and he had returned to gathering berries and digging for willow roots. Then, luck struck again when a muskox appeared out of nowhere. Roland switched to hunting mode, sneaked into bow range, and fired a piercing arrow at the muskox. He hit his target, and we'll see how he hunts this 800-pound muskox tomorrow. Roland is the toughest and most epic contestant in the wild. He once took down an 800-pound muskox with a knife and a 300-pound bear with a bow. The muskox meat would provide tons of protein, and the winter bear meat would offer rich fat reserves. Plus, the stored berries and blueberries would supply vitamins, covering all his nutritional needs for 100 days. His luck changed instantly. For the first 30 days, he only caught 1 squirrel and 2 fish and survived on berries and willow roots. Besides him, Mark, with 26 fish, and Keith, who caught 4 snow hares in a day, are also strong contenders for the $1 million prize. On day 29, the scene shifts to Amos, an Indian elder. Last night, a bear visited his camp. This morning, he discovers its droppings and fears the bear might sneak in to steal his fish jerky while he's away. To prevent this, he quickly builds a sturdier door and then checks his fishing net. So far in the challenge, Amos has caught fish almost daily, but today brings a shock. His net has been swept away by waves. That net was his main food source, so he returns to his shelter to weave a new one. Fortunately, he brought parachute cord and spends 2.5 hours weaving a new net, which he sets back in the lake's original spot, hoping the waves won't take it again. If he fails to catch fish, he plans to go after Kaylin. A new idea forms in Amos's mind. He finds an iron bucket by the lake and decides to use it to build a wooden raft for fishing in deeper waters. He fells nearby spruce trees, uses logs to construct a catamaran, fixes the bucket in the center, and adds logs fore and aft for buoyancy, completing his ambitious project. Kaylin sits in the bucket and rows to deep water, but while the raft is buoyant enough to float, its balance is poor. Slight movements nearly tip her into the lake, so she quickly rows back. Falling into the icy water would mean quitting the challenge. Compared to others, Joe earns the title of Sloth King in Alone Season 7. He built a cabin frame by day 12, but by day 32, it remains unchanged. Progress isn't slow, it's non-existent. In post-challenge interviews, Joe proudly claims his focus was on gathering food, weaving nets, and crafting. However, he's the only one without a bow, relying solely on nets, lines, traps, and berry picking, which don't take much time. The narrator quips that in their village, even widows wouldn't want him, and only America's military and financial power could afford to support such an idle man. Joe vows to work on his shelter today, but only fells one tree, sets it in place, and then lies down. Karma strikes when he finds holes in his tarp, causing rain to drip inside. Heavy rain outside turns into light rain inside, lasting until early the next morning. Joe, the Sloth King, uses animal hides to wipe the leaking water, nearly breaking down. By dawn, his sleeping bag is wet, and his snow gear needs drying. At his pace, the shelter won't be finished before the challenge ends. Then, Joe has a bright idea to tie the tarp to the frame, declaring the shelter done and calling himself a genius. The scene shifts to Roland, who sits in his shelter preparing to eat stewed meat. Over to Fish King, Mark, who recently caught 7 or 8 fish, too many for his shelter to hold. He ties a beam to a tree and hangs the fish in midair to avoid predators. Like Amos, Mark's net comes up empty today. Suspecting the fish have moved to warmer, deeper waters, he sets his net 3 meters deeper and returns to boil water for a makeshift bath, using socks as a towel. The next day, he checks his net and spots fresh bear droppings on the way, feeling an ominous premonition. Sure enough, the net is empty again. Planning to grab a fish for dinner, he reaches his storage and is stunned. The hanging fish are gone. The bear, smarter than expected, untied the rope and ate everything. In just 2 days, Mark's stable survival situation turns tense. Determined, he plans to hunt the bear, selecting 3 nearby trees, clearing their lower branches, and building a triangular platform to sit on, overlooking the bear's berry patch. Meanwhile, Roland, while digging willow roots, spots a muskox nearby. He sneaks to within 30 meters and shoots an arrow, hitting its hind leg. The thick-skinned muskox barely notices, treating it like a mosquito bite, and starts to leave. Roland follows quietly, waiting 5 hours as daylight fades. With the muskox showing no signs of falling, Roland decides to force it down. The muskox roars, sensing danger, but Roland charges with a knife, strikes, and retreats. Seeing it weaken, he rushes in for another strike. His courage is extraordinary, and after 2 strikes, the muskox collapses. Beaming with joy on camera, Roland celebrates his successful hunt. With only an hour and a half until dark, he lacks time to process the muskox. He eats raw heart slices for energy, removes bacteria-prone organs, packs some meat to take back, and leaves the rest on site, hoping no animals find it. Sleeping until noon the next day, he returns with his bow to process the muskox, worrying that bears or wolves might have eaten it. He's stunned to find the stomach on the rocks eaten clean, but the muskox remains untouched, a stroke of luck. Roland methodically butchers it, removing the front legs, cutting 2 pounds of loin for dinner, and taking 2 more large loin pieces. After nearly 3 hours of chopping, cutting, and slicing, he processes the legs, shoulder, steak, and lungs, yielding hundreds of pounds of meat. Unable to move it all today, he hides the meat on a hilltop, covers it with hide, weighs the edges with rocks, and conceals it with branches to transport in batches. After lunch, Roland goes to move the rest of the meat. Nearing the site, he sees many bear tracks and fears trouble. The bear ate the high-fat tongue and brain marrow, but the hilltop meat remains untouched, another stroke of luck. Roland hauls a 50-60-pound leg, trekking an hour with effort back to his shelter 3 kilometers away. With hundreds of pounds of meat left, it must stay outside another night. On day 35 of survival, which coincides with his daughter's 2nd birthday, Amos seems blessed by her luck. His net catches a northern pike, enough to sustain him for 2 days. Meanwhile, Roland is nearing completion of moving his muskox meat. As he approaches the destination, he spots fresh bear tracks on the ground. Tensing up, he scans his surroundings and is shocked to see the bear stealing his muskox ahead. Instantly entering hunt mode, Roland swears to make the bear pay for its actions. In Alone's wilderness, the video doesn't show what happens next, but Roland kills the bear. The narrator speculates the crew left this out to maintain suspense for the finale. With bear meat added to his supply, Roland has protein, fat, and vitamins covered. The narrative shifts to the broader competition. How will contestants fare next? Who with ample food will face a crisis? Who with scarce food will turn things around? The story promises to continue tomorrow, exploring the strength of a true survival master. Taking down an 800-pound muskox wasn't enough for Roland. He also kills a food-stealing bear, living what seems like an easy life compared to others chasing protein. Yet, others aren't pushovers. Some catch 4 hares, while Amos hits a fox from 20 meters. The question looms: who can survive 100 days to win $1 million? By the video's end, 3 contestants will be out, and their exits will be explained. On day 35, Mark, reeling from the bear theft and multiple net failures, searches the snow for tracks, hoping to set snare traps for a hare meat feast. Instead, he spots fox tracks and urine marking territory. A competitor's presence is bad news. The scene shifts to Roland, the master, sitting in a dim shelter, stewing beef. With little offal left, he roasts a half-pound loin on the fire, achieving a crispy outside and tender inside. After eating, Roland lies down on his bed, living better than Japan's emperor by far. After a short rest, he plans to build a food storage. First, he uses bear brain marrow to maintain his leather gloves and applies some to his hands and face for skin protection. Then, he swings his axe, chopping down nearby spruce trees to prevent bears and wolves from stealing his food. The storage must be highly secure. Roland stacks the cut logs in a square with dovetail joints, drives stakes at each corner, and secures them with wire. He places processed muskox and bear meat inside, separating layers with spruce branches, covers the top with logs, and slides 2 vertical logs under wire as a locking bar. Now, bears and wolves can't break in, no matter what. The scene shifts to Joel, the crafting master who made a fancy raft earlier. Today, he plans to carve a bowl to eat and drink simultaneously. However, felling one tree and hauling it back exhausts him. Though he has 10 days of fish, it's based on half his normal appetite, leaving him half-starved lately. He spends half an hour carving the bowl, puts wood shavings inside, and burns the interior to smooth it, completing the wooden bowl. That night, Joel hears noises near his food storage, checks it hesitantly, and sees a wolf sniffing below. He yells to scare it off, thinking it didn't get anything, just try to climb up. But after setting up a ladder and climbing to his treetop storage, his headlamp reveals scattered fish on the ground. The wolf ate 10 large fish chunks, reducing his 10 days of food to barely 4. Mark checks traps set days ago, finds reindeer moss for vitamins to break the monotony of fish, and is surprised to find a fox in his first snare, which could feed him for 3 to 5 days. However, foxes are protected locally and can't be killed. Mark frees it carefully, avoiding bites that might carry rabies, which would mean instant elimination. Luckily, the fox seems to sense his good intentions and doesn't resist fiercely, bolting into the woods once freed. Other traps catch Mark a hare, and his net finally works again, catching a 2.5-pound whitefish, a big harvest today. Joel, upset over his lost fish, decides to store the remaining fish inside his cabin for safety. He digs a 30 centimeters deep pit in the corner, sets stakes around for a frame, fills gaps with spruce branches, piles thick, compact snow at the bottom, places fish inside separated by branches, covers with a metal plate, and tops it with a stone, creating a wild fridge. After resting, Joel gathers firewood, but, lacking carbs and fat, develops ketosis, feeling weak with legs heavy as lead. While sawing wood, he blacks out and collapses, taking a while to stand. After a night of deliberation, Joel quits on day 38, his body no longer obeying his mind, too weak for work and survival. There's no need to risk his life. On day 39, an uninvited short-tailed weasel pokes around Keith's shelter, too small to bother, easing his loneliness. Keith doesn't offer food but lets it leave unharmed, then checks his traps. His first snare catches a snow hare, followed by a second, third, and fourth, 4 hares in one day, yielding 650 g of protein and 70 g of fat. Overjoyed, he praises the land and water, wondering if sparing the weasel brought this luck. Mark, stuck inside due to a blizzard on day 40 afternoon, stays in his cabin, takes out his son's photo to share his longing, and carves a toy boat for him from afternoon to night. But the boat jinxes things. A spark causes the cabin to catch fire. Mark grabs his camera, runs outside, and pulls burning logs out one by one as the fire grows with the wind. Once the fire's out, the wall is mostly ruined. At dawn, he starts repairs, covering the wall with non-flammable tarp, planning to replace burned logs later. Old Wong sleeps till noon, gazes at the camera for half an hour, then processes logs for walls, working 15 minutes before resting. He returns to his breezy, well-lit shelter for a 3-hour nap, wakes at 4 p.m. to check traps, and, with lazy luck, catches 4 snow hares in one day. Back at his shelter, he stews a pot of meat, eats heartily, and sleeps again. The narrator is speechless about Joe, whose shelter remains unfinished after a month, never using the net he brought and relying on snares for hares, with pelts piling up like trash. Despite the worst skills and lightest weight this season, he survives on endless hare meat. Amos shares Mark's plight. Early nets brought bountiful fish, but colder weather slowed catches. Now, he sets snares in the woods, where animal tracks are clear in the snow, making tracking easier. He sets traps on hare paths and, near his shelter, sees fox tracks, crafting a long spear that night for predators. The shelter's camera catches a fox, and Amos hears a hare's wail, knowing it's caught in a snare. To stop predators from stealing, he grabs his spear, heads out, and the fox flees. Amos arrives in time, ending the hare with one spear strike, the snare working faster than expected. At dawn, he takes the hare to the lake, removes the pelt, yielding 2 pounds of meat, a welcome change after a month of fish. As Amos returns, a fearless fox follows the scent to the beach, approaching within 3 meters, ignoring his attempts to shoo it, and eating the discarded hare organs. Provoked, Amos shoots a blunt arrow, stinging the fox enough to make it flee in pain. Kaylin, never away from her husband so long, misses his embrace deeply. After venting, she checks her traps, spots porcupine tracks, and feels a bad omen. Sure enough, one trap has only eaten hare fur and organs. Another has just a tuft of fur left by the porcupine, leaving her heartbroken and missing her husband more. Luckily, one uneaten hare remains. The Wolf King, Joe, hears wolf howls while eating, losing his calm. As the only contestant without a bow, he can only wave his axe at wolves. The next morning, all is calm, and he processes logs, deserving praise for working on 3 or 4, nearly building half a wall, unlike his usual one-log-and-rest routine. Mark, the once proud fish king, is in a slump. 3 days after the fire, his cabin remains unfixed, and he feels increasingly exhausted, his mental state worse than before, arguing with himself. Eating half a fish, he's still hungry, unable to feel full despite constant eating. On day 44, a production yacht signals a contestant's exit. As the crew lands, the scene shifts to Joe, who knew he couldn't last 100 days but surprises by quitting with 4 hares left. He admits life is tough, his body unable to keep up with survival, and leaves with well wishes. Kaylin, after mental prep, adjusts her mindset and checks traps, her luck turning better. Nature gives her 3 hares after a porcupine ate 2 yesterday, clearing her gloom and sparking hope to last 100 days with the sight of fat on the hare meat. That afternoon, Mark, due to poor physical and mental state, calls the crew to quit. As he leaves, a fox appears, as if saying, "Mark, wait 1,000 years for me. I'll find you then." Fortunately, Mark quit in time. Post-challenge, he's diagnosed with trichinosis, affecting his liver, spleen, lungs, and heart, which could have been dangerous half a month later. The final scene shifts to Keith, surviving on hare meat, still in good condition. On Halloween, he lights a fire outside, planning to eat a whole hare to celebrate. 4 contestants remain, who will be carried out next. The story will continue tomorrow. Surviving in the sub-zero Arctic is brutally tough. Those with fish and meat feast in their shelters, while struggling ones face biting winds, fishing on icy lakes. Unlucky ones confront wolf packs and shelter crises. Yet, some thrive, killing 20-pound wild porcupines, aiming to last 100 days for a $1 million prize. On day 45, 4 villains remain. Roland, with his muskox kill, has no food worries but lacks fat, having lost 20 kilograms. Today, he peels fat-rich tissue from the scalp base, enough for 2 to 3 days. Other contestants struggle. Amos has 3 fish left, nearing starvation, with his net catching nothing due to two large holes. He pulls it in, waiting for the lake to freeze for reuse, and sees wolf tracks near his shelter, feeling panic but rationing tightly, hoping 3 fish last. Keith, previously reliant on snares and hunting, now faces a fat shortage. He spends the morning weaving a net to set at his fishing spot, but the lake's rocks are iced over. Slipping, he bruises his eyebrow and bites his lip, breaking skin. Fearing the crew might force him out, he uses his first aid kit's mirror and gauze to clean blood from his face, returning to survival mode. His resilience surpasses many men. Nets and lines, stabbing and disconnecting, can't be used until the lake freezes. Roland and Keith think of the same place. He sets his net at the spot where he caught 2 fish before, hoping the net works wonders again. But, turning around, the sight before Roland stuns him. He sees a herd of muskoxen on the hill. In the past, he'd have drawn his bow, but now he's not short on meat, and a herd of animals is harder and riskier to hunt. Roland just watches them leave. The next day, the weather worsens. Roland slips while checking traps. His right knee slams into a rock. Luckily, there's no serious injury. Or, like Corey, a fall could cause injury, relapse, and force a quit. That'd be a shame. Today, the lake's waves are fierce, the net's tangled in a mess, at risk of being swept away. Roland fears falling in the lake, uses a 6-meter log to make a lasso pole, and struggles to pull the net back. Over to Kaylin. Her snare catches a ptarmigan, similar to a snow hare. All lean meat, no fat, barely providing any fat. She wants to fish in the lake, but weeks of shore fishing yield nothing. Only when the lake freezes can she ice fish in deep water. On day 48, Kaylin's lake finally freezes, but from her experience, the ice isn't thick enough to walk on. She waits another day. Now the ice is thick enough. She walks to deep water, chisels a 30 centimeters square hole, lays spruce branches as a seat, and begins her ice fishing venture. After 2.5 hours, Kaylin lands a lake trout, her first fish in the competition. Hard work and persistence pay off. Unsure how long she sat at the hole, she lands another lake trout, bigger than the last one. Kaylin feels if this continues, she might last 100 days and win. Back to Amos. He planned to set more traps, steps out the door, and is stunned by the sight before him. Outside the shelter, wolves have surrounded it, 7 or 8 wolves around the shelter. I speculate they're drawn by the fresh fish at the door, hanging there. Luckily, the wolves leave after a few minutes without attacking Amos, but the scare was intense, enough to shake him up. The challenge reaches day 51. Roland finds a new food source. These days, he notices a squirrel lingering in the tree until this morning, when he sees it carrying a mushroom down. Then he realizes the squirrel stashed many mushrooms there. So, Roland swings his axe to fell the tree, takes all the squirrel's winter stock, packs mushrooms in a leather bag, and fills half the bag. Back to Keith, enduring heavy snow that buries half his snares, making it hard to catch snow hares. He raises snares by instinct, hoping they won't be buried again. Keith tracked a porcupine den before, but visits found it empty. He plans to check again today. Winter porcupines are fat-rich. The last one fed him for a week. If he catches this porcupine, his current struggles will be solved. At the porcupine den, he sees fresh chew marks on nearby trees, proving it's still alive. Keith sets snares on its path, waiting for it to fall in. He checks back later. Kaylin's confidence soars after 2 trout. She shows off muscles to the camera, returns to the ice to fish again, and waits 3 hours this time. A whitefish bites the hook, but she reels too fast, letting it slip off the hook. Kaylin jumps 3 meters in rage. Only 1 fish bit today. She wonders if her luck has run out. Amos's 3 fish are nearly gone. Half a fish remains. The lake still hasn't frozen. He crafts metal into a lure and plans to try his luck tomorrow. Keith sets snares at the porcupine den and checks them this morning, thinking it was a sure thing. But the porcupine pushed the snare aside. Keith risks entering the den, checks the narrow crevice. If he gets stuck, he could freeze to death inside. Luckily, he finds what he wants. The porcupine hides deep in the crevice. Keith drives it forward from the back, returns to the front, and hits it. The porcupine never knew it'd be shot dead at home. Keith gets his wish. This 20-pound porcupine will turn his situation around. Just as he thought, winter porcupines have lots of fat. He plans to stew offal to treat himself. But, to his shock, the liver has many white spots, a sign of tularemia. Eating it risks infection, but not eating means he can't go on. Keith faces a tough choice. On challenge day 54, Amos brings his fishing gear to the lake, knowing fish are in deep water. He tries his luck. Within an hour, a fish bites, but, like Kaylin, it slips off. No more bites until dark. Kaylin's 2 trout aren't finished. Today, she plans to rest, stays in the shelter for a day. Fish stew's in the pot. She rubs her feet with her hand. When her feet are clean, the fish is cooked. Kaylin eats heartily. The fish is fresh, tender, juicy, soft, and succulent. Its protein far exceeds beef's. She licks her fingers clean. She thought she could rest today, but snow blocks the vent pipe. Smoke fills the shelter, making her tear up and sneeze. She's tried to fix the chimney. Maybe it's the area's air pressure. The chimney's effect is poor. By morning, Kaylin breaks down. The challenge has gone this far. Contestants' minds are fragile. Sometimes a small thing can be the final straw. She feels she's at her limit, collects snares in the woods, and prepares to quit the challenge. Back to Amos. He's been without food for 3 days. The lake still shows no sign of freezing. He feels his body fat is nearly gone. Only the fire keeps him warm. He calls to quit the challenge. A dramatic scene unfolds. While Amos packs his things, fire ignites nearby wood. Unable to put it out, he moves everything outside. Before leaving, he burns it down for some show effect. How will Keith handle the porcupine? How does Kaylin hold on? How will Roland get needed protein? We'll talk answers tomorrow. How tough is surviving 100 days in the Arctic? Alone Season 7's final 3 would be champions in other seasons. But today, they must find a winner by surviving 100 days to take home the $1 million prize. Day 64 arrives. Snow on the ground grows 10 centimeters thicker daily. Keith's snares catch nothing. Must be reset daily to avoid being buried. Stored hare meat is running low. He considers eating the diseased porcupine, infected with tularemia. Kaylin cries to release emotions, decides to keep going, digs a pit under the cabin, and improves smoke ventilation. At dawn, she fishes at the lake. After 2.5 hours, she catches another fish. Her joy at the lake is beyond words. This is food for days, cut into a dozen pieces, enough to eat for a week. She stays in the shelter to eat, takes out a woven frame, weaves a shoe upper with cord, crafts it in half an hour. The handiwork is quite good. Roland's days grow tougher. The last month will be the hardest. He wants to gather rose hips now to store them up, unexpectedly hits the mark, and sees a porcupine eating rose hips. No way he'd let this meal pass. Since porcupines run slowly, Roland charges with a stick. Winter porcupines are extra fatty, provide much-needed body fat. On day 72, also Thanksgiving, Roland eats bone scraps in the shelter, lights a bonfire outside, burns off porcupine quills without skinning, keeps all the fat intact. That night, Roland eats leg. Faced with such rich food, he marvels this meat belongs in heaven, rarely seen on earth. Keith lost weight in 7 days, needs fat to maintain weight, decides to eat the porcupine meat since handling it already exposed him to disease. He hasn't fallen ill yet, so it's likely preventable. Keith cooks the meat thoroughly on the fire, ensures it's fully cooked. Tasting the fat is like a dry sponge soaking water. He's craved this stew for days. Today, he'll satisfy his hunger, full, and his energy is restored. Keith needs enough firewood for nightly fires, feels sharp pain in his shoulder, checks, and finds a porcupine quill in his flesh. This is no joke. If not removed, it could cause harm. Luckily, the show's medical kit has tweezers. Keith pulls out the quill. Day 75 arrives. Roland wants to eat the last bone, finds the fat chewed off by rats. Fat is more precious than protein now. He checks quickly where porcupine fat and muskox bones are stored. The result infuriates him. Bones with fat are eaten clean by rats. He has to put the rest in a muskox hide bag, hung on the smoky roof to stop rats from stealing. Kaylin survives a week on that trout. After finishing fish head soup, she must fish on the ice again, waits 2 hours, almost catches another trout, but it slips off at the surface. She cries on the ice in rage. Thoughts of quitting take over. She lingers in the shelter till day 80, starving. Kaylin can't go on, chooses to quit. The area's temperature drops to -30 degrees. Roland wears a coat and bare gloves to stay warm. The lake before his food freezes. He tries ice fishing for fish fat to prevent falling through thin ice, brings a pole for safety, chisels a rectangular hole in the ice, waits 3 hours, no bites at all. Roland knows today's a bust. Meanwhile, Keith tries ice fishing, uses hare fur and porcupine guts, but unlike Roland, can't stay out 3 hours. He found days ago frostbite on his right big toe. It's turning purple. If it worsens, it could cause permanent damage, even amputation, but the $1 million could change his family's life. He survived this long. Keith decides to push on. Now, every hour outside, he warms his feet by the fire to prevent frostbite worsening. Day 84 arrives. Daylight in the area lasts only 5 hours. They must chop enough wood for the night in those hours and find time for food. Roland's berries from 3 months have 1 bucket left, saved until today to eat. His stockpile is impressive, but lifting the moss, he's stunned. Stored on the warm ceiling, the berries are moldy, inedible. Roland eyes the muskox's stomach, full of digested grass. It tastes bad but is nutritious, boiled with water to a paste. It counts as a meal. Back to Keith. His face still full of smiles. Porcupine meat is nearly gone. He checks snares today, hoping to catch a snow hare. Smiling girls have better luck. 9 snares set. 1 catches a hare today. Food for 2 days secured. Keith processes the hare at the shelter, fries hare offal in porcupine fat. Tastes delicious. Protein far exceeds beef's. Back to Roland. He walks on the lake to chisel ice for water. A sudden blizzard strikes. Clear shorelines vanish into a white blur. Abandoning the water task, he follows his footprints before snow covers them. Hurries back to the shore. Keith keeps trying ice fishing but lacks Kalen's luck. No fish bite at all. His troublesome toe forces him to warm it by the fire. After eating hare and porcupine, he boils bones for soup. First batches have some fat. Later, it's just like water. The challenge reaches day 89. Keith gets a message from the crew. Stay in the shelter for a medical check. A helicopter lands minutes later. The doctor checks Keith's frostbitten toe for the latest assessment. The doctor finds frostbite is becoming irreversible, and he's in a malnourished state. Per the show's rules, they end Keith's challenge. This woman's mindset was always great. Without the frostbite, I believe she could have lasted 100 days. Now only Roland remains. Tonight's meal is a muskox hoof. With little muskox meat left, he must use every part. Cooked hoof looks unappealing, tastes like chewing a shoe, but provides real nutrition. On day 92, Roland tries ice fishing. Same result as last time, so he stops bothering in the end. He chops wood by day, sits by the fire at night, thinks of family and his late mother. Finally, day 100 arrives. Roland carves the last mark on his tree. The crew brings his sister Megan. They embrace in excitement, celebrating victory. Roland shows the uneaten muskox bone, calls it a wild-found treasure, also has an uneaten muskox rib, made a pipe from hare and muskox bone, uses willow bark as tobacco, meets his mental needs in the wild. With bold courage, great grit, and survival skills, Roland wins the $1 million prize.